Preface. Into the valley of Orofin. The Anorok desert was unforgiving, a sea of golden sands whipped into ferocious storms by the relentless sun. The wind howled across the dunes, carrying with it the stinging bite of sand that scraped skin raw and blinded those foolish enough to venture into its heart. Borovik, Magnus and Djimothy were such fools, though not by accident, but by choice. With faces shrouded in scarves and eyes narrowed against the onslaught, the three treasure hunters trudged through the storm, each step sinking deep into the shifting sands. The world around them was a blur, a maelstrom of sand and dust that obscured all but the vaguest shapes in the distance. Yet they pressed on, driven by the lure of ancient riches and the promise of glory. Borovik led the way, his form a shadowy figure in the storm. The human arcane archer moved with a confidence that bordered on recklessness, his bow strapped securely across his back, its arcane runes faintly glowing even in the midst of the sandstorm. His face was set in a grim line, his eyes narrowed against the stinging sands. There was a fire in Borovik, a burning ambition that had driven him from the merchant halls to the deadly desert sands. But his brash nature, while a boon in battle, was a liability in leadership. He was a man who craved victory at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing those who followed him. Behind him, Magnus fought to keep pace, his steps more cautious, his eyes flickering with unease. The human warlock clutched his cloak tightly around him, the fabric doing little to ward off the storm's fury. His thoughts were not on the treasures that lay ahead, but on the unseen debts that plagued his mind. Magnus's bond with his Ifriti patron had granted him powers beyond mortal ken, yet those powers came with a price, one that gnawed at him with every passing day. His gaze often drifted to the shifting sands beneath his feet, as if expecting the desert itself to rise up and demand payment for the power he wielded. The last of the trio was Djimothy, a gnome artificer whose small stature was no match for the relentless storm, but what he lacked in size, he made up for with ingenuity. Encased in a suit of armor of his own design, the gnome moved like a walking fortress, each step accompanied by the whirring of gears and the hum of arcane energy. Djimothy's eyes, sharp and unforgiving, scanned the horizon from beneath his helmet, ever alert for danger. His armor, a masterpiece of artifice, was both his protection and his prison, a testament to his skill, but also to the grudges he held. His heart was as fortified as his armor, closed off from those who had wronged him and wary of those who sought his aid.
Blasted desert.
Djimothy spat, his voice barely audible over the wind.
We should have stayed at the halfway inn. That way I'd only be lost in the bosom of a whore and a goblet of Questria.
Quit your whining, Djimothy.
Borovik barked back, his voice cutting through the roar of the storm.
There's treasure to be found, and it won't be ours if we're whoring and drunk in a tavern.
The sandstorm, as if in response, seemed to intensify, the wind shrieking with a feral fury. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the storm broke. The wind died down to a mere whisper, and the sands settled. The three adventurers found themselves at the mouth of a vast valley. The towering red mountains of Orofin loomed on either side, their sheer faces rising like the walls of a forgotten fortress. The valley between the mountain faces stretched a mile wide and 5 miles long, its floor a chaotic maze of jagged rock spires and ancient sand dunes. Centuries ago, before the spell plague and the fall of the floating cities of Netheril, the land here had been different. Orolin, the city of magicians, had soared high above, a testament to the might and hubris of the Netherese. But when the magic that held these cities aloft faltered, Orolin plummeted from the heavens, crashing into the earth with a cataclysmic force that sundered it in two. What remained were the mountains of Orofin, their flat faces a constant reminder of the city's fall. Over the centuries, the valley between these mountains had eroded and expanded, becoming a mile-wide chasm filled with red rock spires, mesas and sand, an oasis of sorts in the otherwise barren desert, a refuge for creatures and travelers alike. The valley was eerily silent, the air heavy with the weight of history and death. Scattered across the valley floor were the skeletal remains of Cormyrian spelljammers, their once mighty hulls now broken and bleached by the relentless sun. These flying ships, vessels of war that had carried thousands into battle, now served as little more than tombs for their crews. The debris of sundered armies littered the ground, a graveyard of ships and soldiers alike. Magnus shuddered as he stepped into the valley, the oppressive silence wrapping around him like a shroud. There was something unnatural about this place, something that set his teeth on edge. He tightened his grip on his staff, feeling the comforting pulse of magic within it, a reminder of the power he could call upon if needed. Djimothy was the last to enter, his armored feet crunching over the rocky ground. His eyes darted around, taking in the twisted remains of what must have once been a Cormyrian sloop, its skeletal hull half buried in the sand. The ship was a grim reminder of the battle that had raged here decades ago, the final stand of the bannerless blades.
Hey, Ken. This is Mick here. And, we'll see what happens in post, but you might have just listened to the first, 5 to 20 minutes of the little pet project that Pat and I have going on here. And, we've talked a lot about AI. I've talked about how, my job is working with a lot of machine learning models and working on AI, but I also do it a lot as a side hobby. And I just sent Pat this recording that I made. And in under a day, I had taken the notes from a Dungeons and Dragons single evening adventure with friends. And I had fleshed it out, used some AI to help review some writing and help come up with some writer's block stuff. And I wrote out 8 pages of this story, essentially, what would you say? The novelization, I guess, or there's not really a word for storification. Storifying? Because it's not really a novel either.
Right.
But
yeah, for sure.
But anyways, with the power of AI, quickly cranked out something that I thought was an enjoyable reading experience. I thought it was exciting and captured the essence of the adventure and the feeling of being around the table. And then I started using some text-to-speech models. And I found out we could, technology has come far enough now that I could use multiple actors. And playing around with the different voices available, ones I had created, ones that others had created and recorded, I decided to say, hey, let's start playing around and see where this technology can really go and how well it sounds, how decent it is. And I was absolutely shocked, especially with the narrator voice, and how clear and clean and, performative the narration was from the AI. Because nothing you heard just now was an actual person reading off the story I wrote. It was all, of course, text-to-speech via machine learning models. And, of course, some of it's more obvious, right? Like Borovik and Magnus's voice actors are a little wooden.
A little dry.
And that's because those models, especially if you listen to the sound quality, those models just don't, I think, have as much training data behind them, so they can't personify as much and perform theatrically, whereas the narrator's voice I specifically chose because it had so much model information behind it for it to train off of, and I could really tell it was designed to be performative in a narrator. I thought Djimothy had a great old curmudgeon gnomish guy voice.
Yep.
I thought David had a good snobby half-elf voice. And of course, Pat then, after I sent it to him, I said, hey, dude, here's this. Also, all the music you just heard in that is generated via AI and giving it prompts and BPM specifications and telling it kind of the genre focus and going through hundreds of iterations to find decent songs. But I sent him like, hey, here's like these 7 or 8 desert themed kind of dark foreboding D&D soundtrack tracks, and here's this 24-minute video, or not video but recording of this story I've put together. let's see where it goes. I mean, they like put it together. And so Pat sat down and put a ton of effort into like the sound effects and cranked something out by like 1 a.m. last night. And we just decided to listen together and review it. So whatever amount of that survives and goes in to be shown off to you all, give us feedback. Let us know your thoughts on it, because we think the technology is really cool and it's right there. Like it's so close. Like I could really see feasibly in under a year, we could use this to tell long form stories. And if anything, like also use it to help add like another dimension to entertainment for the podcast, an audio only format usually. So yeah, I guess before I move on to any of our other talking points, Pat, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to it as well, and your thoughts on the technology, your thoughts on like, really scoping out like what we created in under 24 hours of work between the two of us. And how really like over a year ago, 2 years ago, that would have taken a team months,
right?
Or at least weeks in a recording booth and sound effects and licensing and searching.
Especially if let's say you got to have, there were 6 voices involved, right? So that'd be 6 people there. And then a couple of big things, you have, all right, so just your voice actors alone. And then you have your, and then music production. The music production is a piece that's always like, the music production for things is always something that so many people go into, that there's so many layers in that are involved that people don't know about. And so just to have a good, have some good music in the background typically takes a lot of people to do. And so even just right there alone, you have a lot of personnel involved. And then, time-wise on, coordinating those groups, putting out, so you have audio recording and music production and then sound design. But then prior to that, you have your writing pieces and stuff. And like you said, you wrote that and then used, you did use AI to help you, if I understand right, AI helped you kind of, like you said, maybe some writer's block things like, hey, like, helped you get to the next thing, or like, helped you kind of edit it or review it as well. And you'd run it through to kind of refine it. And so the product that you're able to put out in a very short amount of time, it's pretty impressive, I think. And this, however much and also we're being vague about like how much we're going to share, because part of it is like, this is in its own way a little bit of a rough draft. We're excited to keep on improving it and have a more final product that's gone through. So there's more time will be put into all the parts of it. But
that's crazy though too, to think like that's our rough draft.
right, because also so like saying like, so take it 2-3 years ago, it'd be a lot of time. But then let's say we take it back to heck, 10, 20, 30 years ago, like you're like, that is the quality of product out there. It would be just as good, if not better, than a lot of other stuff that was coming out around, especially like now. Granted, we do have the ability to use the collaboration piece here is huge, because for instance, like all the sound effects I'm able to use, I don't have to go in a room and tinker around on a metal can with a spoon next to a microphone.
You don't have to be a Foley artist in your free time.
I can go online to I have a couple different subscriptions to different sound catalogs that I use for stuff, and able to just type in almost exactly what I want and find it and pull it and throw it in and to kind of tweak it for my purposes. And I think part of it too is like, it's just really fun. I enjoy doing this stuff. That's where, and I didn't have to crank this out for a professional deadline, but when you sent me this stuff, I was just excited to get to work on creating something where I can take something and bring in the little pieces that really tie it together. So like you really put together the meat of, or I'd say like you had the meat and the skeleton on there, of this thing, and then I got to come in and I got to
Give it the haircut.
give it the haircut,
Give it some tats.
give it exactly, and I got to dress it up. I got to give it some weapons, give it a cool hat, like, and so that's where I like to come in on things too, is where I like to tie everything together and thinking through little things, okay, when the music drops out here, what emotion does that evoke, and most people aren't actively listening and thinking through that as they consume something like this, but it's subconscious. And so having those little things tuned in there where there's a little, the music fades out, or there's the sound of a little bit of sand, rustling, these things, these textures to the project really bring it to life. And kind of like old school radio show is fun too. I've always thought that old school radio shows were super awesome, where you used to have
I was such a big fan of them.
And then you go back like pre-TV, where it was like family around the radio type stuff. Like they used to have 100 people in a room to do a radio show where there's, there's a choir and voice actors and a conductor and a director. And then there's a guy over there with the giant, like you've seen that giant warble board that makes like thunder, like he's doing that, or he has that thing he spins above his head to make the wind, and all that. And those guys are so cool because they were doing that on the spot, analog, super talented individuals. And
Can you imagine the excitement in the guy though, who first was like, "Hey Fred, tell me what this sound like," and he just started warbling the sheet metal. It's like, I don't know, James. That sounds like thunder.
Yeah,
I was like, it does, don't it? I could stand behind people, and make them think it's thunder.
And what I love about that stuff now too is, as it's progressed through time, there are a ton of sounds out there that aren't the real sound, but because we have consumed so much media, to us, it is the sound. Whatever, a TIE fighter zipping by, that is not a TIE fighter. That's not a spaceship. Now, every spaceship movie uses sounds like that, but you know what that was? That was just a tire on wet pavement being recorded with a microphone and then being either sped up or slowed down and altered in a sound booth.
Was it tire on pavement? Was it actually?
That's one of the main Star Wars sounds. Yeah,
the TIE fighter?
I think so.
Wow. I've always... Oh, no. I thought the TIE fighter was like the scream... The TIE fighter is the screaming one.
The screaming one. It is a screaming one. That's true. It might be... I need to look it up, but I do know, like, for Star Wars, one of the key ones is, like, just a tire on wet pavement. Once you hear that, you're like, what? That's all it was? But genius. But now we get to... So, like I was saying, now, if you hear that noise, you don't think tire on wet pavement. You think something...
TIE fighter.
Something a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Bro, dude, the sound of AT-ATs walking across the snow will always stay with me. The you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. For sure. And so, like we were talking about earlier, we were also talking about like how a car door shutting, a thud. They put that in every fight scene you've ever seen has thuds that are nothing like someone getting punched. But now that's what we think of. So it's fun to take these sounds now and just apply them and layer them and bring something to life. And being someone who likes to create stuff too, like we do, we don't have time, capacity, money, or like also like the talent necessarily to be like doing this professionally or for a living. And so we're able to take what we like to do and apply it and create a product that we can be proud of and that we feel like is professional, is good. Does that make sense?
Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you can put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations. complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I definitely think that, it's the same feeling I got as a kid when I realized, like, in, 2007, 2008, I realized I was like, wow, I can make home videos. Like, I can make home videos and put them on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool to see like all these other people who were kind of doing the same thing and then making like tutorials of how to do it. So like Corridor Digital and Freddie W. And they were like literally making a tutorial called How to Shoot Your Friends with VFX.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like showed like, here's exactly how we do the muzzle flash and the blood effect and the assets we use. And I just remember being like, what? And then going out with a camera, recording with my friends, putting it in the computer, pirating Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere and Sony Vegas. And then just be like, all right, after hours and hours of my poopy computer with a like bare minimum graphics card trying to render it.
And rendering.
I have this super low quality made at home goober like fight scene and blood effects and muzzle flashes. But it was fun. And it was awesome to just know like that was accessible. Like that was within reach.
Oh,
and it really did feel like as a kid, like with that being in reach, it did feel like, it honestly made me feel like unique in the knowledge I had and that like, I was I had something that not everyone had.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a cool niche to be in as a kid. Cause so many other kids, like when they're trying to do home videos and stuff, they don't have that knowledge and they're just recording on a handy cam. The muzzle flash might just be like a cutout piece of paper or a flashlight.
Right.
Or there is no muzzle flash and there is no blood. It is just like imagination, and so like all that I thought was like just so much fun. And I remember, dude, like the most fun I had was recording a video at a park down in a suburban neighborhood in south of Denver. And we recorded this video with airsoft guns painted black, it was like a drug deal that went down bad, and it ended up with like me chasing my buddy to like the back of a King Supers, which like as a like high school boy, you're just like, dude, the back of King Supers looks so sketch. They're just like drop off. Well, like what hour of the night do they drop groceries off? And I just remember like we were filming this and he's like, we had my buddy on the camera just like catching different angles. And I had like this airsoft gas blowback pistol. My other buddy had the revolver and he was acting out of ammo and he's just like, bro, we can talk about this. We can make a deal. And he's like backing up to the garage door. I was like, no, man, it's too late for that. And I remember just like, you're just squeezing the trigger and the little airsoft guns like clicking because, it's got like just gas in it and no BBs or anything. And he faked, like he was getting shot up. And then we watched it over and we were so excited. And there's a lot of stuff we cut out and a lot of stuff that was garbage or, but we edited it together, put in the blood and the muzzle effects. And we were like, dude, this is a legit fun homemade movie where we're all shooting each other and it's so fun. And it was so like, grassroots kind of renegade. Like we knew we were going to get in so much trouble. The police department was right next to us.
Yeah.
And like, I'm shocked that we did not get in trouble when we were recording. And it was just like that, feeling of like you're creating something that everyone thinks is a million miles out of reach. And that's kind of the same feeling I was getting with this and the excitement I had yesterday when I was working on it was just like, and I'm not saying this is, the next Da Vinci's Code, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, whatever you want to pay. This is not the next 50 Shades of Grey. Dude, imagine having to make the sound effects of that. Imagine I totally sent you an absolutely different video, or not video, but recording. And I was like, hey, can you put sound effects of this? And you're like, oh my God.
I'd have to pull out some middle school maneuvers. I can make certain body parts sound like other body parts because I was in middle school once.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So I think like it scratches that itch, and it's all of a sudden like, wow, like I could legit see like, a literal published audiobook one day under Mick and Pat Studios. You know what I mean? And like that would not be very hard to do or very expensive.
Right.
Other than marketing. I guess marketing's always the uphill battle. Dude, what if we end up like those people I was making fun of on their Comic-Con video?
We're just going.
We're just like at these conventions, just you and I sitting there. We should just take cutouts of ourselves. Because of course we're not going to sit there and reveal our identities.
Like that'd actually be a great booth where you, the way AI is going, but you do a cutout with like it looks cheesy because you have a old school like megaphone style speaker in the back of the cutout for the mouth, and people can come ask us questions, and it just has but it's cheap AI. It's pre-programmed responses that don't actually answer what they want. So they're like, hey, like what were you thinking about when you like did this part? And you're like, glad you're here, check out our book. And that's what it is. Yeah, but
hey there, Ken, thanks for showing up.
Exactly.
Free sticker with every book purchase.
And then you just set out this, it's a bin that says stickers, but you just set it out empty,
bro.
So people just always think they're always out of stickers.
Yeah.
And to that point of being cheap is the fact that, so you already have 25 minutes of something. So, let's say if you buckle down, you could have a full thing out in a month.
Oh yeah.
Which would be like the cost benefit there. Like the amount of effort you have to put into that is just so much less time and energy, money, like all these people you're paying, to where you could risk it. You could put together audiobooks, stories and things and put them out there, and it's not such a big hit when nobody buys your book that you literally spent 4 years writing. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, we put this together in 3 weeks. Hope you like it. Yeah,
and I was like actually looking into it too, like just to try to understand, especially because I'm a Game of Thrones fan. And George R.R. Martin says like on a good day he writes like a page and a half.
Wow.
And his books are 1,500 pages.
Yeah.
So
is
that book's never coming out. He's like, he said he's at like 1,000 pages in it, and it's like supposed to be the biggest one of the series so far. It's book 6. But like, granted, he puts out great content with like engaging stories, tracking multiple characters across different times and regions, and it's very engaging and it feels very believable when you're listening to it and reading it. So I'm not saying anywhere remotely I'm putting out content equivalent to his,
right?
But yesterday,
putting it out faster,
I put out 9 pages to do that. I think yesterday, maybe 10, and then today, when I was working on like doing a horror short story, quick 9 pages today.
Yeah.
And like, that's bullet points. That's outlines.
Right.
And that's like not even like after taking it and having my writing algorithm work with me to flesh out and find, anywhere I was inconsistent or like review dialogue that just doesn't sound human. Right. And so then like I work with that to refine it. And that's kind of the cool thing too, is like AI can literally be like, this sounds clunky, or be like, you might want to consider rephrasing this.
Right.
And it's like gotten to the point where like the robot is the editor now, and like can tell me like when stuff doesn't sound like it doesn't come off the tongue right, or read right when you're reading it in your head. So, but all that said, it's pretty fun. I'm super enthusiastic about it. I'm gonna keep on playing with it, man, because I just think like we legit could do something fun, even if it's even if it ends up being like we just have something where like once a month we drop a nice 20-minute short story, or or like even like you were talking about the radio shows that just now Gunsmoke was every week,
right?
But that was a production,
right?
Right? And you had like over probably 100 people working on Gunsmoke at one point in time,
right?
As an audio drama. So I do think that would be cool. And I was kind of thinking too, I was like, it'd be cool to like do it, and like if people enjoy it, they could submit their own stories. Like whether it was from Dungeons and Dragons or something they wrote, and like as a Patreon thing, they submit it and we record it and, you know, provide acting and sound effects for it.
Yeah. And I think it's already going to be 2 years since the airport one.
Since we started working on it?
Since yes.
We never released it here.
Because it was Christmas.
But there was nothing about that was AI back then.
That's true.
That was all
you
and I, and it was such an uphill thing of like working on it. Because I was like, dude, this is going to be so much effort, and I definitely don't want to, like, I don't have the energy nor the desire to do like the voice of like 5 different characters myself, or try to, I don't want to talk like a woman for all the female dialogue. So,
but that story,
did it spooky you? Did you like it?
I liked it. I was excited for what was going to happen. It was such a setup for something wild.
Bro, dude, I'm happy you feel that way, because I think it's like 10 times better after like literally hammering our way at it all day today.
Oh yeah.
Here's the crazy thing. I do want to show this. So this is going to be some dialogue from that actually. And I do think this is probably like some of the most impressive part of like AI speech to text so far. Is that it can like, and you know, this is probably like a selfish, like the world revolves around me realization, right? But like it can do speech to text of Vietnamese straight to English between 2 different characters very quickly. So let me set this up real quick and then we'll play it for you all. So here it is. The idea here would be, right, narratively, you first hear the Vietnamese being spoken in the story, right? The dialogue between 2 characters, Vietnamese, but then the Vietnamese fades into just the background sound effects while the English is kind of read over it. So that way it's kind of that moment of realizing like, oh, the characters are speaking Vietnamese, but for the audience,
I know
it's translated into English. Right. So here it is. This is Grandpa Spuds Oxley is the voice. Don't know who Spuds Oxley is, but that's the grandpa. And then the Vietnamese man is Trung Kaha. And they are going back and forth in conversation, reading off 2 Bible verses to each other, one in Vietnamese, one in English. Now, the translations are translations I did with Google and ChatGPT to double check them. They translated cleanly on both. So
sounds like Vietnamese to me.
Yeah. And it sounds like one of them is definitely being spoken to a non-native speaker, and then the other one sounds native. So
Chung ta phai lam kong viek kua jang jan sai ta trong luk kon ban gai. Jem jen ki kong I ko the lam viet juoj. We must work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. John 9:4.
Luke Huang Hon, Abram Ngusei, Vakia, Sukin Huang Vabong Toi Jan Jo Shuang Ong. At sunset, Abram slept soundly, and behold, terror and darkness fell upon him. Genesis 15:12.
That I think is just insane, especially because I added just the pause of like internal reflection before speaking and response. And it sounds to me like 2 people recording themselves talking in a sound booth.
Yeah.
Like it really does. And maybe I'm just biased. Maybe I'm just biased here. But it definitely like is mind blowing to me how clean that that audio sounds.
Yeah, I'll say this: if you're told it's AI, you can hear it.
Sure.
But if you just but that, you know what I mean. But if you just played it, there'd be plenty of people just be like, "Oh, that was a computer." You know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think it's, it's super impressive, especially like some of the nuance, like you just said, where it's the American guy's clearly speaking American Vietnamese, right? And
yeah, Vietnamese through an American accent,
right?
Heavy American accent,
right? That's impressive.
So yeah. Anyways, AI is cool. I don't know what we're already going to be at in the episode time-wise, but I think we got enough time left over here that I can, I want to share something I saw. I was captivated by a Netflix trailer for a TV show. It just was so over the top in this trailer, and it didn't show enough to just make me feel like I knew everything right from the trailer. So I had to look it up, and a lot of people were like, wow, this is crazy that they're monetizing this true story tragedy into a show. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, everyone should the news not report?
Have you seen Cops?
Yeah, I was like, should the news not report? Should every crime junkie, like crime podcast, NCSI, should they all stop? Like, no, like, I think that's insane. There's a way of doing it with like at least a modicum of just like respect, right? And not making fun of like, or shaming, you know,
it's
the
not
tragedy that occurs in some people's lives, but also like you can comment on it, and you can also be funny about it and bring brevity and levity to a very heavy, you know, subject or story.
And the bad guys aren't the ones making money, right?
I don't think any of them are making. I mean, they might be making money. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure where the guys stand in life now.
Okay.
But what really reeled me in is that it's called Monster. It's the story of Lyle and Eric Menendez. I don't know how to say that E. But it follows the two of them, and it's very clear in the trailer they kill their parents. But their parents seem like very wealthy, kind of Epstein people. And it looks to be like it looked like there was more beneath, you know, the surface, of course, and, you know, some convolution to the reasoning behind behind the murders. And then I found out it was real, and that both of these brothers shot and killed their parents with shotguns.
That's violent.
And the investigation, though, turned out to be like one of the more insane, high-profile investigations of like, do you charge someone for murder based on the circumstances? Yes, it was cold-blooded, but it was also the result of some insane abuse. So I think a lot of people have already heard of this. You know, I'm saying like millennials and older. I'm one of the millennials. You're one of the millennials who haven't. But I'm just going to read off kind of like this synopsis I typed up here, you know, to kind of like put it in a story format. So that way I'm not reading off internet articles and stuff like that. But the story starts in the heart of Beverly Hills, right? And imagine we're looking at this big opulent mansion, and it's, you know, for this family, the Menendez, it is a symbol of, you know, wealth, authority, power. But what was going on inside, man, was some pretty unspeakable stuff. Outwardly, everyone thought that they were just a wealthy, perfect family with, you know, two healthy boys. Happy wife who was, I think she was a model at one point, if I remember correctly. Just like her work was like winning pageants and stuff like that. And then the father was Jose Menendez. He was this self-made kind of corporate titan. And he's played by Javier Bardem, which is what reeled me in.
Oh, I didn't realize this isn't like a document. This is
it's like a drama. Yeah, docudrama, dramedy.
Actors, writers, directors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And apparently he was just like absolutely insanely controlling, you know, ran his house with an iron fist, literally. And, you know, beneath this veneer of success, he just had this like really monstrous, like perverted appetite for abuse, and like found it very entertaining to, I think he did some weird abuse. Like he enjoyed, he was a masochist in that like he had abuse to himself, but he also abused his wife and kids. And so his wife, Kitty, you know, she was essentially like this, you know, beautiful, perfect, hot mom on the outside, but really like she had just kind of apparently in the home just succumbed entirely to, the madness of living with a husband like this and the denial of any of it being wrong. And of course, she became entirely dependent on him for money and the lifestyle that like his money provided. And she just like totally allowed and knew exactly what was going on with her sons and their father. And like, she knew all the abuse that was happening in the house and just ignored it. Just was like, yeah, this is just our family. So Lyle and Eric Menendez, these golden boys, their father pretty much made them do some pretty insane and disturbing sexual acts. I'm not going to go into detail here. You can look it up.
I have actually heard about this case.
You have?
I mean, parts of it. Yeah. It's bad.
And it was, years and years of mental and physical and sexual abuse. And as these brothers grew older, the fear that they had and keeping silent, and they didn't even actually I'm not sure that they were ever in the room together at the same time during the abuse. It was like he would abuse one at a time. And they didn't tell each other out of like embarrassment, but finally they confided in one another. And I think only one of them received the sexual abuse while the other one would get beaten or, called names and stuff. And once they realized what was going on to both one another, they just, they got angry. And that anger just turned into a plan to finally get vengeance. Like one, vengeance against their dad for being a total monster and traumatizing them. And then two, vengeance against a mother who totally has just been indifferent and looked the other way. So that way she can maintain her lifestyle. And so, one night they took their shotguns. They had apparently bought these shotguns and actually went to the range to practice with them and just understand grouping and pattern and like, are we like, how far out can we shoot our parents and kill them, accurately, right?
So they were 18 when they weren't minors when they did this.
They were not minors. Nope. And so one night they go and grab their shotguns and they confront their parents apparently in the den where the main the abuse happened primarily, and in a pretty brutal act of rebellion they shot their father first and blew his face off. Like, it was not a gut shot, leg shot, it was they shot him in the head each once, I believe. And then Kitty started screaming and like, apparently this is how they recount it. She's screaming and panicking and apparently tried to start bargaining. And they both confessed to like shooting her in the face when even like didn't matter what she was saying. They just blew her away. And so now, they had gotten their revenge, but they like went into this weird, like, I don't know, like if they were just intoxicated with the feeling of like freedom and it's over and we're done. But they kind of spiraled into like this hedonistic frenzy. They spent tons of money, essentially just trying to empty the bank accounts, and, getting drunk, doing drugs, sleeping around. And the police pretty quickly figured out what was going on. Eventually, you start realizing no one's seen mom and dad around and bills aren't getting paid and the kids are spending it like there's no tomorrow. You go do an investigation. And, initially they were fooled by the alibis, because everyone on the outside just saw it as like a clean family, clean record. But then they began to get suspicious as the brothers' guilt kind of manifested more and more into this like, outward erratic behavior. And as it closed in, Eric was just, racked with guilt and confided to a therapist he was seeing at the time. And that therapist, of course, by law required mandatory
reporting.
Mandatory reporting. And she reported them. The brothers were arrested and they went into the spotlight where, the trial came along. And of course, this like circus parade of the media just absolutely like running the craziest headlines apparently at the time. Again, of course, I don't remember reading any of these. I was probably a kid. Or I might have not been born yet.
It was 93.
93. I wasn't even born yet. But it was just apparently like an insane, just one speculation by the media of like what occurred, what didn't occur, if the boys were the abusers, and then of course the flip side of like painting them out as villains, and then of course painting them out as absolute victims, and that like they had enough, and like should they even be charged with a crime? So the boys claimed self-defense. They went through and provided years of evidence or narrative for the abuse, which later they had a cousin come forward to back up their testimony, talking about how like as a child the cousin had known about the abuse because one of the brothers told him about it once. And a couple other witnesses came forward. I can't remember if they were like house workers, like maids and cleaners or something like that. But like other people had become aware of it. I think Kitty also let some things slip. And so the court though was pretty divided. Some saw them as victims and some saw them as cold-blooded killers, just driven by greed to get mom and dad's money. And they ended up each getting convicted and sentenced to life in prison. And so they were separated, and each of them were in solitary confinement just due to they were seen as traumatized and not suitable for general population in prisons, and 2, super highly violent offenders. And so for decades, they're just kind of sitting in jail. In prison. And there's like now like been times of people talking about how there's like apparently like types of hauntings occur apparently in the Menendez house, which is like weird. And that's kind of like, I guess, like the most recent modern like mansion rumors of like there's like apparitions and like the trauma and abuse has manifested and like evil spirits are remaining there for what occurred, which it kind of does, if you think about it, plays like Amityville Horror. If you've ever seen that movie, like an abusive father figure whose eldest son grabs a shotgun and just shoots everyone one night. But which is also weird because that's a true story too. Did you know that? The Amityville Horror? I don't know. That's real. It's like one of the most insane cases of possession. And this kid claimed that the demon possessed him and made him kill his whole family with a shotgun one night. It was in like New Hampshire or Maryland. But anyways, crazy though is that, I mean, they've been in prison. I think they're still both in prison currently, according to the latest updates from like what I was reading around. But they both got married in prison.
That happens. There's crazy,
that happens a lot.
There's some crazy people out there.
I swear there are more guys. Okay, statistically,
it's easier to get married as a prisoner than it is to be a man out there on the streets.
Yeah, it's like it's easier if you're a murderer to have a woman become obsessed with you and want to marry you than it is to be like normal Joe Schmo on the streets trying to find love.
Yeah.
Now that's an exaggeration, but it is crazy how many girls fangirl over murderers.
That phenomenon should be studied.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, man.
It's the ultimate I can change him, maybe.
I don't think it's that. I think it's like a deeper fantasy of like, I want to be abused. I want to like be so close to the, it's kind of like probably, you know what it is? It's probably like why men die earlier, because men find that edge to put themselves at risk and feel the rush or, the excitement, like poking a moose.
Right.
Or slapping a bull's ass, right?
Just can't help it.
But like men aren't like, I want to be in the same room with the serial killer and like see if he won't kill me.
Yeah.
But like for women, I think it's the same edge.
For very particular set of women.
Yeah, for a very particular. You're right. It's not all women.
Right.
I do wonder though sometimes about, my Billie Jean and her friends and her family, and how many of those women just love listening to murder while they fall asleep.
Like true crime podcast.
Exactly right. But anyways, so Lyle married Rebecca Sneed, and Eric married Anna Erickson. They divorced in 2001, and I think Lyle is still married. Eric married a Tammy Ruth Sackerman. Their wedding cake was a Twinkie.
They have a little file hidden in it.
LOL, that'd be awesome. In 2005, Sacramento self-published a book. They said we'd never make it. My Life with Eric Menendez. Eric did a lot of editing and contribution to the book, apparently, according to her. And Eric's quoted as saying, "Not having sex in my life is difficult, but it's not a problem for me. I have to be emotionally attached, and I'm emotionally attached to Eric." Oh, no, sorry. This is what his wife said. Tammy, "My family does not understand when it started to get serious. Some of them just threw up their hands." I'm like, no way. No way. What? Your family was disappointed? Dude, I just want people to, like, one of my favorite analogies I ever heard about not having sex or trying to be romantically involved with people in jail.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my sheriff deputy training, and they said, here, they literally just took a marker on the whiteboard and they drew a circle on the board. Like, here is everyone who is in jail or prison in the world. And then they drew this massive circle around it, you know, 100 times the size, and like, here is everyone else. And they're like, you can have sex with these people.
Yeah.
And then they poked the tiny circle and they're like, don't have sex with these people. And it was like he's like, everybody understand which group you can have romantic relationships with. And I just thought it was like the most plain, like, yeah, why on earth would you pick those people?
There's an old phrase, plenty of fish in the sea.
Yeah. Now, man, we're star-crossed lovers, baby.
There's another one called shooting fish in a barrel. And
that's true. Where are they going to run? I'll just follow you to your next prison.
What's the deal with conjugal visits? Is that real? Is that a Hollywood thing?
They are real, but they're not very common.
Yeah. I mean,
but they are real, especially for like private prisons that have like a lot of chain gangs that get released anyways to go do road work or like performances. So,
or probably like lower, like maybe.
I mean, they just put them in a trailer. It's a trailer in the yard, bro.
I know, which is just, it's a horrible, it's got to be horrible, you know?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't want to ever end up in that situation.
No kidding.
But anyways, so that's kind of like the story behind the Menendez, Lyle and Eric, and what occurred. Yeah, I was debating going into more detail, but I think that's enough. And I think that's enough of like a brief overview for people to be like, ooh, I'm interested in that and seeing what happened, or ooh, that's dark and that's enough. And I know enough now to have a conversation about it.
And it's nuanced enough there to be like, okay, the law, like the way these guys were tried under the law, how to say this, you know, basically they broke the law. And they murdered people. Also, from there, like, if the testimonies these guys gave were true, it doesn't justify their murder, but it does help. It does give another side of the story to go, okay, here is how someone got to this place, and or like, if this was a Western. No,
it's totally fine. It's unforgiving.
Somebody might not have as big a problem with it if it was set in 18.
Yeah, it's Clint Eastwood,
80, right?
Yep.
But that being said, yeah, so it is. It's a sad story. It's an interesting story, and it's a interesting case study on ethics, morality, and the law of man and the law of your nation and the law under God. Like, you know, there's different, there's not just one set of rules.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, I'm personally, like, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, well, and nothing was lost. You know what I mean? Like, awful people met awful ends. I don't feel like it was a tragedy. I don't think we lost anything of value to society.
Right. If you're giving it like what's the word for it? Not egalitarian. What the hell does that word even mean? I'm sorry. I'm like, so I had the word and I totally lost it, but you know, yeah, if you're giving this like, It's the same way we evaluate how we manage animals, like in which would be this. Is it for if you're doing just like the very like utilitarian good of the herd versus good of the individual type thing, like
yes,
good of the herd. This was this, all parties involved. Probably, like you said, we didn't get set back from a more micro analysis tragedy,
Anyways,
yeah.
Check out the show. It's going to be called Monster on Netflix if you're interested in that stuff. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch it yet, but it did catch me. I mean, all right, actually, I'm going to be honest. I'm definitely going to watch episode 1 because of Harvey or Bardem. I mean, anything he's in, I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy and a good bad guy.
For real. And the one thing, knowing some of the details of that case, it's going to be really weird or bad to turn it into a full show.
Did you watch the trailer?
No.
Well, watch the trailer because I'm pretty sure they're not going to shy away from some of the really fucked up shit.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like the level of like graphic stuff that they put on TV nowadays.
Yeah.
Like this is like, it's bad.
Yep.
So,
Would Mace Windu watch that with you since it's about true crime murderers?
No, this just makes her sad. Dude, okay, I'll tell you this. We don't watch, get this. We don't watch Malcolm in the Middle.
Dude, I love Malcolm in the Middle, but the intro to Malcolm in the Middle gave me nightmares as a kid.
It is
like
wild.
That intro video as like a 6-year-old made me terrified.
Yeah, it's a fever dream with Godzilla and all these things going on.
Mm-hmm.
But so
you're not the boss of me now.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, dude, I love that show.
I
so
love
much.
Malcolm in the Middle.
That
but
show's so good.
She doesn't see it as a comedy. She sees it as a tragic, dysfunctional family.
A truly awful, over-controlling mother and a father who
Completely
is
absent,
like, yeah, father
dopey.
who's literally like, one more bad day away from suicide. Like it's a brutal. Like I get it. Like everyone does like the not self-analysis, but like the hindsight analysis of Malcolm in the Middle after they finish it, and they're like, you know what? She was a bad mom. It's like, no way, really?
Yeah,
she was a bad mom.
There's the reason why some of this stuff's funny.
If she was a good mom, there'd be no show.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, no. So this is like this gets too wild, too real for like my wife. Like she's a therapist who hangs out with kids, so the stuff she deals with, like
it's real.
Like earlier we were talking about, like he talked to a therapist, mandatory reporting. Like the reason why I know the phrase mandatory reporting, my wife. She has to do that stuff,
Yeah.
But so she would not watch it. I may give the first episode a shot, but I don't know how deep I want into this.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see.
Yeah. Wild.
Anyways, all right. Little updates, I would say, from quick last things from the summer, videos or movies I was watching, right? Or TV shows and movies and audiobooks, because we were doing that a little while ago. I started watching Banshee, and it is trash. It's entertaining fight scenes, but it is like it's like the old school version of like HBO shows and stuff that were like, dedicated 5-10 minutes an episode of sex scenes. And it's just like the decisions people make, the meandering. So
if it's carnal,
we
want it to be
violent.
And is carnal only sexual? But
I think it is.
So
I mean, you think it just means of the flesh?
But that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. If it's carnal in that sense, like we want it to be swords.
Yeah. So anyways, Banshee was top of the like end in television, like fight scenes and choreography. That was entertaining. I didn't finish it because I just could not get past how dumb the characters were at times and how it's pretty schlocky. And I think that was the intention. The other show we just started, and finished up to season 2. Season 3 is about to drop here. September 20th is From. It's a horror one. I think I mentioned before, but it's really good. It's just like Lost, but darker, scarier.
Oh yeah, you were telling us about this.
Yeah, dude, it's so good. I really encourage people to watch it. It's on MGM Plus.
What's the title?
From.
From.
Just FROM.
From.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it a lot. I think it alone is entertaining enough, and just production wise high quality enough that it's worth the like $7 a month for MGM just to watch that and then cancel your membership.
Mm-hmm.
And season 3 is coming out, so you could just binge it after season 3's out. The other one we just finished, I'm trying to remember, it was like a one and done season. I can't remember. I have finished another couple D&D books that were really entertaining, but the one that I'm really enjoying right now is called Hyperion. Have you ever heard of Hyperion?
Mm-mm.
Hyperion is like a not old school, but like 80s or 90s sci-fi book series. It's 4 books, and they're called the Hyperion Cantos. And this first book follows these 7 people in this super futuristic, space opera-like scenario, as they've all been allowed to do a final pilgrimage to this weird burial tomb site that is essentially being patrolled by this entity known as the Shrike. And a lot of people now in this future sci-fi civilization, galaxy spanning civilization, believe like the Shrike is like one of the few non-human like sentient entities that exist. And a lot of people believe it to be Satan. And it's like, it's got like a lot of crazy religious undertones that are really interesting to see how it played out. It's in like sci-fi, but each chapter of the first book is the background of each character that led them to being offered to come on the pilgrimage. And it's kind of like the most classic facets of storytelling. Like you have the priest who is on a final embarking journey of faith and testing of faith. And then you have a like retired colonel, glorified military general who knows the truth of his service and is essentially embarking on this quest to justify his own title. You have kind of this, you have definitely like what is known as the consul, and the consul is kind of like the navigator or the captain of a ship. And he is essentially also like your classic character of, wife, child dead. And like he continues to go on living, but what for? And it has to really kind of confront those. There's the Jewish philosopher. There's the poet philosopher. There's the dirty background noir space detective. And all of them have their own story of why they were offered this pilgrimage, and now they're all here on this planet going to this pilgrimage site and likely to die. Like no one's ever returned, and so but this is the last time they're going to offer it before like essentially the planet's off limited. It's a very like old school sci-fi setting, but it's very entertaining, and just like our audiobook, it's narrated by like 7 actors, one for each character.
Oh, nice.
And it is very well done. I think it's very entertaining. Victor Bavine is one of my favorite narrators, and he narrates the bulk, I would say, of the book. But every time a piece of dialogue comes in from one of the other characters, it's narrated by their voice actor.
Oh, cool.
So it's pretty sweet. But anyways, so that's kind of what I've been reading so far or watching and what I've been enjoying. So Pat, anything from you? Anything you listen to? I know you were listening to a couple books.
Yeah, I was listening through. Right now, I'm listening to 1984.
Oh yeah,
I
just got that for free on Audible. I think it was free in the library.
It's free on Audible. It's good.
You liking it?
I do, but it's just scary.
Yeah,
that's all. You're just
we live it.
Yeah. You're like that's now.
Yeah,
lots of those things. But show or movie wise, man, I need to get on some new stuff because my go-to, like at this right, I have not. Remember like how I told you I was like for a while I was
just Nicolas Cage or Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, yeah.
But like but in that time too, I was hitting like a movie a night,
bro. All right, I got something
just
for
like
you.
All sorts of things, and so, but now I'm like, I'm just on like not a lot, which is, it's not bad. I'm not really watching too much TV, but then,
True.
But then at the same time, it's like, if I want to watch them, I'm just putting on Psych, sitting down, watching one episode of Psych, I'm going to bed.
Stop doing that.
I know.
I have a new show for you.
All right.
A show that I think is right up your alley.
Yep.
You should watch Homeland.
All right. I can get back into, I watched like the first couple episodes.
Gosh.
I know. And that's a show I could watch with Mace Windu. So that would be.
I don't think you can.
Really?
I think it gets way too intense.
It gets too intense later on.
There's times where I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like, there's never been another show to get my adrenaline so high.
All right. We're checking out Homeland.
Dude, it's so good.
And so I have been crushing out. Here's the deal. Jack Carr, James Reese, Terminal List series.
Yeah, that's right. You've been blazing through those.
I've read them all. But I mean, I love those books. They're just literally
outlets.
Yeah, it's straight up outlet, and it's a lot of things I like. Like, you know,
I mean, you know, I don't think I'm being exaggerative here, but it's like it's masculine.
It's man smut.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's masculine masturbation. Like it's like you're reading it in your brain and visualizing it. And you're like, yeah, kill those guys.
Oh yeah, no, for real. It's definitely man smut, and it is a good character, good development. I think I do like Jack Carr's writing. It's like easy, quick to consume. It is, and it is like he's a total gear whore. He's always bringing up stuff that I like, that I love.
Yeah,
and like, I really like Jack Carr from what I know about him, as well as and I like his books, and so that also led me to now I'm like,
he seems like a good guy.
While I'm waiting for those books to continue coming out, I've been reading the old school Jack Ryan books. So
the Tom Clancy
stuff, because of what I saw. I was about to pick up start reading Rainbow Six, but the main character from Rainbow Six is from Jack Ryan series. So I had to go all the way back, start at the beginning, and go all the way through. And I loved all the Jack Ryan, like the old Jack Ryan movies as a kid with Harrison Ford. And so going through those, and that's what, when I'm going to sleep at night, like instead of watching a whole movie, now I'm like, I'll read for 30 minutes on a thriller, go to bed. And so that's been good. And yeah, it's definitely no East of Eden. It's not 1984, but also while I'm falling asleep at night, like much better. Then during the day, I'll hit the, those other books on audiobooks. And that's why I also don't want to just listen to, like, I still need to actually read stuff. So like, that's the stuff that I read. And then the stuff that's above my level, my audiobooking, because that's how I get it done.
I do really think you should go back and give the second book in the 3-Body Problem a shot. Like I should, because I truly think now, like after watching the series, and I know like the way you felt about the first one.
I like the first one. You kind of scared me away from the next two.
Really?
Just because you like, I have to gear up for the long bits.
I mean, it can be long, but bro, like the second one is so good and like easily the scariest book I've ever read.
And I didn't
watch Panic Sweats.
And I didn't watch that whole show. I only watched the first 2 episodes.
Oh, really?
So I didn't ruin like, because I know they brought in a lot of
the themes of the second season,
and some characters in. So, all right, I'll put it on the list.
It's so good, and it's very well narrated. All right, cool. Well, last thing I was gonna say.
Yeah.
This is not an advertisement. This is not an advertisement. This is not a political advertisement. I've been on the phone hours this week arguing with people in India about how we are not advertising for any candidates just because we mentioned that Sleepy Guy had COVID. Right. And in that episode, I accidentally said his name, that he had COVID, and they're like, that's advertising. I'm like, it's not advertising.
He's not even doing anything.
He's not even running anymore.
I don't even know if he's the president right now.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I saw Orange Man's. Orange Man was being interviewed by Lex Friedman.
Oh yeah.
And that was a excellent interview. I mean, you can watch it honestly too, because both of them speak so slowly when they're just like going back and forth in a dialogue. I watched it on 2X and I understood everything.
Nice.
And it made it a 45-minute interview to like 20 minutes. But if you do anything at all to just try to better educate yourself, I encourage you to watch Orange Man in that interview, and you will see like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I don't think the media is being entirely honest in his portrayal of this guy. Because I'm not even saying like his policies and what he talked about in this interview were, you know, stuff blown out of the water. But you watch that and you're like, this is not the behavior of an individual who I think is dangerous. This is not like poor behavior, right? Like it's a very presidential interview. And I also think same thing could be said if you look at any candidates when they're interviewed by something that's not like a rehearsed,
Right.
long
form podcasts are where it's at right now. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Dude, there's a reason like you can't believe.
he was on Theo.
Yeah, he was on Theo and he was on Orange Guy also got interviewed by a couple others that I was watching. He did Theo, he did the Twitch streamers, he did another one recently. That was Sean Ryan, yeah. And like it was just weird, like you watch them and you could tell like, dude, this isn't scripted. Like that he didn't tell them what they can ask and what they can't ask. And like that's what I loved about the Lex Fridman one, because if you want to see him get put on the spot, like legit on the spot, Friedman's like, hey, what about Epstein's Island? How do you feel about that list? How do you feel about marijuana? How do you feel about people saying you're fascist and you're painting the enemy as a communist? And like he also, I think the best thing he said, that wasn't even a question, it was just a statement. He said, I truly think you're at your best when you were talking about the future and not talking down your competition. And he said that, and you could see Orange Guy was like, he like internalized it. Yeah, that's Lex said that to him. You could see he like internalized it, and he was like, you know, you might be onto something there. Like, you're probably right. I probably am at my best when I'm talking future and not getting wrapped up in talking down. And it was just one of those things that you were just like, wow, dude, this is not at all who you think this guy is.
Yep. And I think the ear piercing he got helped him out a little bit on that front.
Got him some street cred.
I mean, and
like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, some humility there. And so the long form podcasts that are uncut with these guys, I think is like,
it's the future.
It's
man.
Super important. And I'll tell you what,
everyone thought the Smiley Lady interview with CNN was the most boring thing. It was so boring, clearly scripted.
Yeah.
Softball, underhanded questions that were definitely like, you can ask that, you can ask that, you can't ask that.
And even those responses just not real. They're not from a real person.
No.
And like it's like,
I would love to see her go on any of these things just to see like genuine questions.
Be genuine. But
yeah.
But here's the deal. They can't. Like, she can't because she's just so rotten and evil.
Can anyone guess who Pat is voting for? Just kidding. We talk about it all the time. It's no secret.
Yeah, no, it's like, gosh, we were, yeah. I mean, what the heck? So, and the fact that, you know, if you take all the time that he has been public and speaking in these formats compared to her, there is, she's in the basement with old sleepy guy.
Yeah.
They're basementing her with old sleepy guy, and they are.
It's like they're kind of protecting her from getting like any possible bad exposure.
Close the gap on some polling with, you know, a big push, and then just kind of hoping it rides out.
Yeah.
And plays out. And so
we'll see how it happens, man. I'm still not even buying the numbers that are advertised on either side.
Oh, no, for sure.
Like the polling, I've never had faith in. I can't remember a single poll that I thought got it right.
Oh, yeah.
But what I do find interesting is the people who are on the ground going up to like randos in New York or California where there's these big, you know, they're not quote unquote battleground, but they're predominantly states where you think you know exactly who people are voting for.
Yeah.
And they're like, who are you voting for? The amount of people voting for Orange Guy, the people you see voting for Smiley Lady or what they say, it's just very surprising. I think I'm still going to vote for yoked, warbly voice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote for a president candidate who can do pull-ups. That's who gets my vote this year.
Rule. They should. Okay, here.
Have you seen him doing pull-ups?
Yeah, and here's the deal.
God, his biceps are insane. His biceps look like someone wrapped wet T-shirts around his arms with like cellophane packing.
Mhm.
Like that's just how rigid and torqued they are.
Oh yeah, and maybe if you want to enter the armed service, no matter which one it is, they have a physical fitness situation test going on, right? And so, if you're commander in chief of the whole dang thing,
You gotta do a pull
maybe
up.
you need to be you got
One
to
pull up, 5 push ups, 5 sit ups.
exhibit some form of physical capability.
I agree.
But we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, that's kind of all I had for the show today. I mean, we've gone on plenty, and it could be a long episode depending on how long our opening is. So, Pat, you got any last sign offs? Anything to say here?
We ended up wrapping this thing up, doing a little politics, and like I'm saying, when I say we'll see, is I'm just not that worried about it.
Yeah, me either.
I could, if I think about it too much, get a little upset, but I'm just not that worried deep down in my soul about it. My soul is good to go. So make sure your soul's good to go out there, and just don't put your faith in, people. Put it in higher places. And you actually can't put your faith in people. Put it in your friends and your family and people who are around you. You can
And when
put
they
faith
let
in
you
that.
down, forgive them.
Exactly.
Have generosity.
Exactly. So you can put some faith in folks, and but
Don't put your faith in politicians.
yeah, no kidding. And if you're itching to get creative, because we were created in an image of something, and that means that therefore we like to create because we were created by a creator. So we want to create stuff. So
Preach.
go download some AI junk or go buy a violin from a secondhand store and create something, because that is a beautiful outlet for the way we were made to be.
Amen. Well, with that, Ken, till next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.